were saying about how the Fast and Furious, how you were involved in it.
Okay, we technical advisors talk we were having. Okay, so technical advisors, basically our role is to advise the production team about the subject matter. In this particular case, it was illegal street racing and the cars and the modifications on the cars. I was
Right.
focused on the cars as a technical advisor. RJ was focused on the illegal street racing scene and the wardrobe and that kind of stuff. So basically, the key word in that phrase is advisor. We give them advice. We make suggestions about the parts they should use on the cars, things like that. And then it snowballed, it developed into a bigger role over the time. They wanted to get the car sounds just right, so they hired me back as an advisor for the sound production. And we went out to a runway and airstrip, and where we brought the Supra, the Maxima, and a whole bunch of other cars, Eclipses, and all that kind of stuff. And we did speed runs up and down the runway. They have to get all kinds of sounds, like the car pulling away, the car revving, the car launching, the car doing high-speed flybys, full throttle passes, all that. So when we get there, they asked us, okay, you guys are going to drive your own cars, right? And we're like, well, we're not stunt drivers. They said, it's a straight road. You can't hit anything. I said, okay. So you're going to put these guys in charge of their own cars to do 140 miles an hour on airstrip? Okay, we have no problem with that. So we did that for a day.
Wow.
Actually, a couple of days. So there was a lot of things to it because at the time, Universal didn't have anybody on staff that knew anything about the Japanese tuner car world.
Right.
And because I was running the Naira drag race series in the United States, which was just for Japanese sports cars, Japanese cars, I had connections with a lot of the companies that could contribute to making the movie. And that's basically why I got hired. And that turned into about a 3-year adventure, all done, between the first movie and the second movie. The same thing. Sorry, go ahead.
I believe you often get asked as to why the Fast and the Furious universe has changed its direction from being an illegal street race concept to something that is very, very different at this day and age. But I don't think you have anything to do with that, or
No.
even when you were involved.
I stopped working on the movie after Tokyo Drift. That was the last
Right.
movie I worked on for them. That's a great question. I get it all the time, and I'm going to give an answer that some people are not going to like, but it's the truth. Okay. Here's the deal. Movie companies are in business to make money. Number one priority. They are publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. They need to make money. The first movie was produced for $40 million, $39 million, and made $211 million. Fast 7, which had nothing to do with illegal street racing, cost them I believe it was $150 or $180 million to make, and it made $1.5 billion with no street racing. Okay, so remember that for a second. It's going to be relevant in a moment.
Okay.
After Tokyo Drift, which was the worst movie box office wise, it sold the least amount of money, or made the least amount of money of all the movies. Universal was scratching their head and said, hey, we got to do something else. What are we going to do? And they did a lot of research, and it turns out that heist movies, theft movies, movies about people stealing stuff, some great conquest or burglary, whatever word works in your language, it becomes a heist movie. That's what we call it in the U.S. And then since then, they've just been doing it that way. In 2009, I think it was, Vin Diesel gave an interview for a magazine and said, we had to get away from the illegal street racing world because it just isn't enough interest from most people around the world. And think about this, no matter where you live, whether it's your country, India, Thailand, the United States, walk up and down your street and see how many people have JDM cars parked in their driveway that are all modified. Okay? It's a small number, right? Even
it's a very small number.
So think about your neighborhood. Every single person living in that neighborhood probably goes to a movie at some point in their life, right? But how many of those people actually have JDM cars downstairs or in their parking lot that belong to them, and they're all into illegal street racing? The answer is not a lot. Very, very globally, it's this much of the population. But everybody can understand, no matter how old you are, whether or not you know anything about cars, you understand the concept of a burglary, of a heist, of a theft. So
True.
then it becomes an action movie with cool cars. And so
Right.
Universal is adamant about going down that path. They've done a lot of research about their audience. The largest audience, the largest segment of the audience is Latino,
Right.
Hispanic, from South America, Central America, Spain, Portugal, Hispanic, Latino. That's the
Mm-hmm.
biggest audience. This is why you're seeing the incorporation of like Latino cultural elements, the music, the people, and all that kind of stuff. And they've done very well doing that approach because these movies are making a lot of money. Now, for people like your fans and people like me, they've lost a lot of the element of the JDM stuff that we like to
Mm-hmm.
see. But to
Mm-hmm.
their credit, they do make an effort in almost every movie to squeeze in a couple of cool JDM cars. And R34 Skyline is in almost every movie. You're going to see it again in Fast 9. Then they keep doing that as a tribute to Paul. Paul was a Porsche guy as well. You'll usually see a Porsche in one of the movie, and in the movie is at least one of those cars.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of that going on. So they're not car movies really, but what other movie franchise is around today that produces a movie with all kinds of wonderfully expensive and exotic cars and then blows them up? There's not a lot of
Right.
movies doing that.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
going to say it's still kind of a car movie, but it's not a
It's
car
still,
movie.
it's not a common. It's like the Italian job,
Right.
like the Italian job.
If you were into minis, that was a lot of fun. But me as an American with a front wheel drive and a tiny little engine and a tiny little turbo, I wasn't very excited about minis. Because
Right.
we're Americans. We like our big old V8 motors and all that kind of stuff, our carburetors and all that kind of fuel injection stuff for all you boys out there. That's not for us, man.
That's not for us.
That's
I
not.
can do that accent a little bit
That
too.
you did it well. The Texas accent, I call it.
That's the Texas
No
accent.
disrespect, but there's a lot of that. And the picture car teams are usually like that. The people who work in Hollywood, who build
Mm-hmm.
picture cars for a living, most of them are
Mm-hmm.
old white guys like me. And so
Mm-hmm.
people like us grew up in the muscle car era. I was never really a muscle car guy. I just wanted to do something different with my life. But most
Mm-hmm.
of them were ever given the opportunity. What should we use? What should we use? What kind of car should we use for this character? Ford, Chevy, Dodge. Or how about a Nissan Skyline? A what? Is
Oh,
that what these
what?
are? Japanese Corvettes?
Japanese Corvette. Craig, that's amazing. We're gonna move on to a little bit of we're gonna move away a little bit from Fast and Furious for just a second. We're gonna go into your personal automotive history, but before we do that, I can see that there are a few questions here already. Mr. Farhan Hawk has asked a very interesting question. He's asked that in Tokyo Drift, was the Mustang Fastback really an abomination with parts of different cars or just a stock car?
So most cars that you will see, especially cars that are being used for stunts, are usually pulled out of a junkyard and they are reassembled using parts from other cars to get one complete car. But you have to understand that in each of the movies, they have the way they build the cars goes like this. They have
Mm-hmm.
one very pretty, shiny car. That's the one where the actor will pull up and come to a stop and then jump out, and it gets the close ups, all that kind of stuff. That's called the
Mm-hmm.
hero car. Hero
Right.
1. Okay. They usually have a copy of that car in case this one gets crushed for some reason. So they build a copy of that. That's Hero 2. Everything else is a stunt car. Sometimes they need 2 stunt cars. Sometimes they need 9 or 10 stunt cars. So the stunt cars are very rough. They're basically just a shell of a car with only the equipment they need to do the stunts. So it'll have tires and wheels, proper brakes, maybe an emergency handbrake for doing slides, that kind of thing. But they are not pretty cars. The actual Hero 1 Mustang was an RB20.